Hello, I'm Janna, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. Today, we're going to be exploring a new-to-me product. I didn't know if you know, but there is another spray out on the market that claims to have oxidizing properties. So we're going to be investigating that today and comparing it to our traditional distress oxide sprays. If you'd like to see exactly which supplies we're going to be using, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Today, we're going to be comparing and contrasting a familiar product and a new-to-me product, but maybe you've heard of this before. I did not know until pretty recently that there is another product out on the market that claims to be able to create oxidization effects. I did not know that there's anything else outside of the world of distress that had the potential to oxidize. So let's take a look. This is the product. This is from CSY Art Gallery. I have never heard of them. I don't know, maybe they're common, maybe they're not. But I was cruising on Amazon and I discovered this, and I was very interested when I saw the header saying oxidizing spray. So what is this? So according to the bottle, this is an ink spray layered, and the color is Athena Star. It's handmade, non-toxic, premium, and it comes in a 1.9 fluid ounce bottle or 56 milliliters, depending on how you're measuring. So the directions clearly state, please be sure to shake it thoroughly before each use. Okay, sounds pretty standard. That's a regular distress type of thing. Color precipitation is normal. Please be sure to shake thoroughly. Please wipe off any excess paint from the nozzle. So right there, paint. That's different. So is this a paint? Or is this a spray? Or is this a spray paint? Wipe off the extra paint from the nozzle mouth after use to prevent clogging. Okay, pretty standard. All right, let's turn and see what else this says. So the directions say, shake well side to side before using to ensure the dye ands? I think that meant and. Pigment ink fusion is mixed thoroughly. Easy opaque ink coverage. Mist water reactive formulation with water to enhance oxidization. The modeled effect. Clean the spray nozzle after each use. Okay. Grown-up use only. Used as finishing touch on paper, wood, fabrics, leather, and much, much more. Great for a beginning base to a project or as a finishing touch. Also adds glamour to cut flowers. Okay, interesting. And then that's what it's supposed to look like. So let's see. What does our traditional distress bottle say? Ranger, Distress Tim Holtz Oxide Spray. Villainous Potion. Water reactive dye and pigment ink fusion. 1.9 fluid ounces or 57 milliliters. Shake well side to side before using to ensure the dye and pigment ink fusion is thoroughly mixed. Spray directly on porous surfaces for quick, easy, opaque ink coverage. Mist water reactive formulation with water to enhance oxidization and modeled effects. Okay, see, they sound the same in that regard. In those instructions, that sounds pretty much the same, almost word for word. Mist water reactive formulation with water to enhance oxidization and modeled effects. Clean spray nozzle after each use. Conforms to, etc. Adult use only. So, they sound essentially the same. The thing that is making me question whether they're the same or not, well, I know they're not the same because the color is completely different, but is the formulation remotely similar? The thing that bugs me, or maybe intrigues me, is it says, please wipe off excess paint. So is this really a paint? Is this an acrylic-based product? I don't know. So we're going to find out exactly what this does, how it stacks up, and just compare it to our traditional distress oxides, which we already know that we love. All right, let's see what this does. We've talked about it. Now let's see what is it doing. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison, and then I'm going to do some swatches with the distress oxides and the sprays, and then we'll get into a couple of techniques just to see how this works. All right. So we've got both bottles. We're going to give these a really good shake. Ooh, listen to that. That is clunky. There is a pretty substantial mixing ball in this, but listen to that. either way, we're going to shake these really good. You can hear that is definitely a smaller ball bearing in there. This one feels pretty substantial, almost like a marble. All right, so these are pretty well mixed. Now let's get our water, and we're going to spray both papers, and we're using some Distress watercolor cardstock. So good even spray on both sides. We want to make sure that it's going to work well. Try not to have too many variables. I'm giving these an extra shake just to make sure that any sediment is really, really well incorporated. All right. So I'm just going to leave that on the side. Let's try the CSY gallery first. All right. So there's our nozzle. It's a great color. I like the color already. So that's how it looks when it's just sprayed. I'm not going to do anything else to it yet until we have our villainous potion down. Interesting. I don't know. I remember villainous potion being a little bit darker, but that's okay. All right, now I'm going to add some water to both sides. I'm just going to do a little bit of a drip. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm seeing some good fluid movement. So far, I can't really tell anything on this side. I'm not seeing anything happen yet. I can already tell over here that we do have oxidization going on because we got this swirly, creamy, dreamy cloud floating here. I've got nothing cloud-like over here. It actually looks like a lot of the pigment is washing off. But I'm not jumping to any conclusions yet. Let's go ahead, put this on fast forward as I dry these off, and then we'll take a closer look. And I'm also going to try to do some of our traditional drip drop patterns at the same time. Let's take a look at our two samples. So on this side, we've got some Villainous Potion Oxide Distress, and on this side, we have the Ink Spray Layered Athena Star. So what do we notice? Is it water reactive? It looks like we've got some of the interesting drip drops going on. Is it really oxidizing? I'm not seeing it. It looks like a slightly opaque spray. This side, you can tell that there's oxidation. We've got all sorts of different colors going on here. We've got some creamy, dreamy stuff going on. And when it was coming off of the paper, like you could see in the little puddles that there was some oxidization going on because it was changing color. So it's like we know this oxidizes, but over here, I am not seeing that. Do we have some color degradation? Yeah, there's definitely some color separation going on. It's a little grainy, but I don't know, I'm not seeing it now. One thing I know about distress, if we add more water, then we're going to get some ink movement. Now, I don't know, is this supposed to be waterproof after it dries, or are we still going to get some ink lift if we add water? I'm just going to take a piece of scrap paper, and we're going to add a little water to each of these. I'm just going to put a drop there and a drop here. Now this I know is going to have some lift. We're going to set our paper down. Yep, I can already see lift on this side. Not sure what's going on there. And we're going to lift that. And look at that. So this is the distress side. We have lift. You can see where we lifted. This side, absolutely nothing. This is not water reactive after it dries. So once it's dried, we can't move this. Which also means during the drying process, we've got very limited time to even attempt to get these little splotchy bits, because otherwise it is not going to layer. Ooh, that is interesting. So this is only one ink. I think we need to try the other 6 inks that we got to see what we're going to see if there is oxidization. But maybe what they're calling oxidization is not the same as what we consider oxide effects with the distress. So I think it's only fair that we do swatches of 6 colors on both sides and then see how these play with some of the techniques that I typically use while art journaling or card making. I'm curious. Well, let's go ahead and find out. what we have done for samples. So these were the first two that we had looked at, and you can tell that the oxide is definitely oxidizing on Distress Oxide, but the CSY Art Gallery, it's very opaque, which is cool, but it's not really what I'd call oxidizing. It's definitely got some water reactivity going, which is cool, but no oxide yet. So here's the next one. This was Rustic Wilderness against Waterfall Green. As you can see, this side we got some great oxidization going on. This side, it's definitely moving, and we've got some interesting granulation going on, but again, I'm not really seeing what I would call oxidizing, but you can definitely see that there's some speckling going on. It's like whatever the pigment is in here is kind of breaking apart. It's kind of cool. All right, then we had Seedless Preserves and Girl Star. This one actually has the most noticeable change, which is interesting. There's definitely some movement going on. It looks like it's trying to separate and kind of do something, but I'm also seeing like little clumps in here of pigment. I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to do, but it's still an interesting effect. And again, with the Seedless Preserves, like we've got all sorts of oxidization going on here. We've got different colors, we've got some layers, we've got tons of depth. It does what I expected to do. All right, now this one was Moon Lime and Frayed Burlap. So Frayed Burlap is a creature unto itself, and it oxidizes like crazy. We got some crazy patina going on here. Very, very cool, very creamy, dreamy. Over here, not so much. We've got some good movement going on. We've got some separation, but what I see advertised on the bottle is not what I'm seeing on the paper. Now, I did switch up the papers as well. We started off with some distressed watercolor paper, and then I moved to mixed media paper just to see if that was going to affect how these were playing. I don't see any difference between the two, and I don't know, what I'm seeing on the bottle is really what I was hoping to get, but I'm not getting any of that grayish undertone or green. Like, I don't see it. All right, next we were taking a look at some Wilted Violet and Royal Purple. The Royal Purple in and of itself is a lovely color, but again, it's not doing a whole lot. I'm seeing some clumping, a little bit of wicking going on here, but it's not oxidizing. And the bottle really shows a different story. Like, we should have been getting some blue undertones in here, a little bit of pink, but I don't see it. We've got a lovely uniform color, but we don't have that variation that the oxide gives us with Distress. All right, the last color that I looked at, I couldn't really find a good color matchup for this, so we went with some Prize Ribbon on the Distress side, and on this side we had some Jupiter. Now, the bottle is gorgeous. I mean, look at all these colors in here. We've got some yellow, we've got some orange, we've got purple. You can kind of see it in the bottle. It's there, it's lurking, but on paper, nada. We've got a lovely uniform color of a rather dirtyish purple. I want to see those undertones, and I'd love to know what is going on. Where are they hiding? Is it the paper that's not letting them bring out? Are we putting too much of the product on the paper? I am not sure. But let's try a few techniques. I want to see what these have the potential to do, and I think we'll try to even do a crossover and bring some Distress Spray Stain in the mix and see what might happen if we combined the two products together. All right, so we're going to set our swatches aside. That was interesting, to say the least. And let's try some stenciling. So we have the stencil. This is THS 075. We've got some lovely roses here. So I was thinking we could go for the green and maybe Girl Star. No idea how this is going to turn out, but only one way to find out. And I kind of want to make a little bit of a pattern, so I do want to do just a little bit of masking just to see if we can make this into a usable background. Okay, so I've got that. I'm just going to put this right here, and we're going to continue that little jaggedy edge with this. All right. So let's see what happens. It can't hurt. So I'm kind of thinking we're going to just put the color straight through the stencil, and then I will try to do a little bit of a dry and then a little blend out with some water just to see what happens. So let's go ahead and give these a really good shake. Okay, and let's start with the green. I'm going to try to aim for where the leafy bits are, but it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. All right, that's... Oh, that did something different. That did something different. Okay, whoa. Okay, I need to check that in just a moment, but let's finish this thought first. Interesting. Okay. All right, so we have that. I want to go back in with that green. Okay, so we have that. Let's take our little piece off of here. You know what? I'm also going to do a mono print just because we have the ink. We're here. Let's just go for it. And we're going to lift. Ooh, that's pretty. I like it. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment. We're going to let it dry. And I'm going to take this. I'm going to try to take some of that rough edge off. Oh, you know what? Maybe I can blend it out. All right. And we're going to flip this over and see what happens. I am curious how a monoprint would do. Because why not? It's like we know the techniques, so let's transfer these over and see how that works with these other products. I am curious. Okay. Good. And lift. Ooh. That is kind of pretty. All right, I'm just going to quickly clean up the stencil, and then we're going to turn our attention back to our stenciling. All right, no issue with cleanup. Now, I saw something interesting that I do want to address in just a moment. That was really interesting. Okay, so we'll be back in just a moment. I want to dry this off, and I also want to try to get just a little wicking with this one. All right, let's try the wicking first, and then we will bring in our Ranger Heat tool. So, not a lot. I just want to get just a little movement. Just because it could be interesting. All right, I'm already liking this background a lot more. And I'll do the same over here, I think. Already liking that a lot better. Did not expect that. All right, let's dry these off and come back. All right, let's take a look at these backgrounds now that they're dry. I am surprised. I actually like these. I would not call this oxide, but we've got some pretty cool wicking going on here. I mean, look over here. We've got some really neat things happening. I am intrigued. These actually play really nicely together with each other. Whereas the Distress Oxide can be a thing unto itself, and you can get away with just using one color to create something really, really cool. The CSY seems to need another color to play nicely with, because on their own, they're kind of bleh. But together, that is so neat. I was not expecting that at all. I mean, come on, when you look at oxide and like just one oxide does all that, you're like, whoa, mind blown. Awesome from just one product, but apparently these kind of need a partner in order to get their creative juices flowing, so to speak. All right, now I noticed something else very interesting, and if this is accurate, then I don't know what I think. So in the crafty world, we talk about substrates all the time and how the right substrate matters. That is very, very true, because if you try to use, like, say, cheap vanilla folders with our distress sprays and inks and whatnot, it's kind of a it don't look so good. And that's why we use our beautiful distressed mixed media, cardstock, and tags. That's what we've always been taught. But when I was spraying and using some very cheap notebook paper, the oxides from CSY suddenly looked like they were oxidizing. That can't be right. I don't know. So, water, and we're going to use matching distress because, all right, Let's just go for it. This is either going to be wow or painful. Okay. And let's see what it does. Oop. Okay, so together it looks great. Now let's work the same with the oxide. So on the CSY side we used Royal Purple and Waterfall Green. On the Distress side we're going to be using Rustic Wilderness and Villainous Potion. So, ugh. Oh, I feel bad wasting my distresses on this. This makes me want to cry. Because they are not meant to go on such horribly cheap paper. And I can already tell they do not like it. They are, there's puddling and stuff going on that doesn't typically happen. So let's just add some water, get that flowing. Oh, I'm probably going to destroy that paper, but okay. Getting a little water over here. All right. I'm going to dry these off, and then we're going to take a second look, and I'm already cringing because that side is starting to look better than this side, and that is, ooh, I don't know. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, here are our dried pieces. Now, this is weird. So, this actually looks like it might have done something. It's a little bit more creamy dreamy than what we've seen. So this was the CSY on its own, just one color. This was the Royal Purple. And then this is combined with two colors on very, very cheap notebook paper. It's interesting. On here, it just doesn't seem to do much except separate. On here, it actually looks like we might be getting a teeny bit of oxidization, like right around here. Like you can see something happening. This is odd. I've done some checking and I can't find any paper or substrate that's like specific to the CSY line. So I don't think there's anything out there at the moment that you're supposed to use these with. But the fact that this is working on plain lined paper is really blowing my mind. The other thing I'm noticing is that if we tilt this, you can see a satin sheen. Now that I'm seeing that, because you can't see that on here at all, there's no sheen, absolutely nothing. I suspect that this actually might be some sort of acrylic spray. And that's probably why it's not playing in the same way that the Distress Oxide does, because that is water-based. It's an ink and a pigment. So that might be part of why these are reacting really differently. This may say oxide, but no, it does not oxidize. It just does different things, and it does look pretty cool. But now, coming over here, oh, this seriously hurt my heart, putting Distress on cheap lined paper. That was painful, because this paper really eats the product. It's very, very porous, so it takes more to absorb it. I mean, yeah, it looks kind of cool, but no, it does not do what it's supposed to do. This is not the way Distress was intended to work. This is that's Distress. That's it's an effect. It's a thing, but am I going to ever do this again? Absolutely not. I could not bear to put any more Distress on lined paper. Cringe. No. But for the sake of experimentation, we now know how this product may be intended to work. I am just guessing here because I have not seen a lot of education around this product, and I am just experimenting, trying to see if there was another product that remotely could oxidize. All right, moving on. So the last thing that I wanted to do was to see if the CSY might play nicely with Distress products. We're going to try two things. One, we're going to try to mix it with Distress Oxide just to see if having a little boost of actual oxide can make a difference in how the product reacts. And then we're going to pair it with some Distress Spray Stain just because that could be interesting. All right, so let's put our paper down. I decided to use some mixed media, and I want to use that. That's a interesting color, and I'm going to put that with prize ribbon. So give these a good shake. And we'll spray this one first. I'm going to treat this just like I would any distressed background, and we're going to see what we get. Okay, so right away, the CSY spray wants to just wash out. It wants to run away. It does not want to stay on the paper. So I have to go back in, add a little bit more. The Distress Prize ribbon, I can see it already really wants to oxidize. It wants to do the dance. So we'll be back in just a moment. I'm just going to dry this off and we're going to see what we get. I'm not expecting much, but you know, you got to try all the things to see what works and what doesn't. Okay, here is our dried background. So this is pretty interesting. I gotta say, these two products really don't want to play together. I'm seeing a lot of separation with the CSY spray. It's like trying to run away from the oxide, but the oxide just like trying to cover everything. Is it a neat look? Yes. Do the two work well together? No, not really. I mean, if we're dealing with something that's potentially an acrylic spray versus a water-based spray, then no, it doesn't. It really shouldn't work. Do I like the color combination? Yeah, colors are pretty cool. I think that's very vintagey, and I think we got an interesting feel here, but I do not think these are remotely compatible. So that's where we are with that. And no, it did not help this oxidize whatsoever. The oxide is doing the oxidizing, and this is, it's there. All right, so last thing, just an experiment because gotta try all the things. We're going to be bringing in some Distress Spray Stain. And I want to use, we are going to be using some spray stains. We've got some squeezed lemonade and some mermaid lagoon, which we're going to be pairing with Girl Star. So let's just see what happens. I am curious. Let's start with the yellow. It's our lightest color. And I'm kind of hoping we might get a cool rainbow gradient thing going on here. It'd be nice, but we're just going to see where this ends up. All right, gotta give this a decent shake. Ooh, that was really overpowering. Okay, let's go back with a little bit more yellow. All right, let's dry this off and see what we get. And here's the background incorporating some Distress Spray Stain. So what do we notice? It did try to blend, which is kind of cool, but look right here. That's really interesting. Like the spray stain doesn't really want to let this play. It's kind of pushing it out of the way, which is really interesting. It doesn't really blend. It's kind of doing its own thing. I'm very convinced that that is an acrylic spray. And that's why it's not playing nice for that or giving us remotely same effects, even though this is actually advertised as an oxide. So it's interesting. I do like the color combination. It's different. So today we have been experimenting with some new sprays, and these are by CSY Art Gallery, and these were advertised as an oxide spray. So we've been investigating if there was another product out on the market that can oxidize. I think it's pretty safe to say that no, as of right now, there is not anything else on the market that is capable of oxidizing, at least not in the way that we come to think of oxidization when we think of Tim Holtz and Distress. Distress is distress, and it oxidizes like nothing else that I've ever seen. Can you crisscross and match these elements together? No, they are really two different products. I haven't found an ingredient list yet, but just the way it's acting and knowing what I know about other art supplies, it's really acting like an acrylic spray. So the two things are just never going to play nice, because if you have something water-based and something acrylic-based, the two are going to kind of act like water and oil, and they're going to want to separate. But that's just the nature of the product. That's not saying that the product has done anything it's not supposed to. The only thing it's lacking is its promise of delivering oxide. But I always want to leave room open for the possibility that maybe I've missed something pretty big and maybe that's why it's not working for me. If you happen to know anything about the product and have gotten this to give some cool oxidized effects, I would absolutely love to know. If there's tutorials, I would love to see because I am curious. Anything that can have really cool effect with water always is going to catch my interest. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Crafty Corner for some creative exploration. I've enjoyed the process today of going through and trying different things and enjoying a different color palette. Thank you so much for joining me here today, and until next time, happy crafting!